Hey everyone, it's Chris Bentley, host of Social 333 podcast, and today my guest is Charles Reed. Charles, welcome
Chris,
to the show.
pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what you got going on.
Well, I'm Charles Reed. I'm a CPA. I own Custom Payroll Associates. GetPayroll is how we go to market. We provide payroll for small and medium-sized businesses around the country. I'm a Midwestern boy. I grew up in Iowa, joined the Marine Corps after the high school, spent 4 years in the service, 2 years overseas, met and married my wife, who was 10 years older than I was, and had 5 children when I married her. I claim insanity, but we were married for 45 years before she passed, so it worked for us. Found that my military experience was not valued in the business world, so went to college, got my BBA and my MBA at North Texas, sat for and passed my CPA exam while I was still in graduate school, went to work for Texas Instruments, spent 15 years in the corporate world, large companies, small companies, turnaround startups, great experience. Realized I was never going to get to the top because I didn't have the political skills. So I started my own company here a third of a century ago.
One of the things I was looking at, and I'll get into some payroll stuff and some wild stuff I've seen, but that you're one of the few that's a U.S. tax court practitioner.
Yes.
So they call you in for legal proceedings or U.S. Senate?
No, what that does is allows me to practice in U.S. tax court, even though I'm not an attorney. I have a bar card from the U.S. tax court, and I can represent clients. And the reason I got that was a few years ago, I got it about 10 years ago, the IRS was getting very obstreperous, more so than now. And to protect my clients, it was an additional set of expertise and abilities that I can do. So when I've exhausted all administrative remedies with the Internal Revenue Service, for $60 I can file a petition with the U.S. Tax Court, and it starts all over again. And this time with much more sophisticated people. I laugh because the last case, the IRS was not very sophisticated. And in fact, in that case, when we were talking to the judge and I was reading from the IRS document, district counsel did not have the document and had been unable to get it out of the IRS files. So I sent them a copy of their own document. We won the case.
I worked at DEA as a contractor, and I got to meet one of the IRS or the main IRS agent that worked on the Pee Wee Reese file, which was the movie. Man, the movie name is going to totally blow me away. But as Denzel Washington was the main character, and he was the drug dealer, and Pee Wee Reese was like his right-hand man kind of guy. And that was he came into DEA and told us some cool stuff about it. But one of the things that he got busted for, and I'm going to get into some of the stuff that maybe you can help me with, was he bought houses for his girls that he had, and he'd always pay cash, and he ended up paying, like, I forgot how he did it, but it was like a weird number or something like that, and he got busted. We had a guy that's a crime boss, a mob guy, and he went to go buy flowers, and he didn't have his regular, back then, you have checkbooks, right? And so back then they didn't have his checkbook. And then he only had his checkbook for his secret account. And then he wrote a check for his secret account. So I have some pretty wild stories about some of that stuff. Or another guy got busted because he liked a particular set of numbers. So like a 777 or like a 333, right? So he'd make out checks, or he would, send money, and it'd always be, $1,000 or it'd be like $1,333 and 0 cents, just some wild stuff. And they ended up getting busted. But with payroll, I know for myself as a business owner, it's one of those deals where you just hate doing it, right? And then you have to like sub it out to somebody else, a company, because you just don't want to deal with sitting there doing it yourself.
Payroll is rather complex, more so than just paying people in cash. And if you're not familiar with it and don't do it all the time, it's difficult to deal with the IRS and the states and the locals. The analogy I use is when I grew up, Pele was the world's best soccer player, maybe of all time. It can be argued. But if you take Pele and you put him in a New York Yankees uniform at second base, he's lost. He's still a great athlete, but he doesn't know the game. He doesn't know the rules. He doesn't know pick up the ball with your hands. I mean, it's a whole different world to him. So you're a successful entrepreneur. You have a successful business. You produce product or services, and you keep your clients happy, and you're making money. Now, go deal with the Internal Revenue Service. Go deal with payroll. You're Pele at second base. Hire somebody to do it. It makes no sense to do it yourself.
Yeah, because there's a lot of mistakes that could be costly. I saw you put a couple different notes here, like IRS penalties. My sister's a master CPA. She tells me a lot of this kind of stuff: misclassification, incorrect filings. I'm a self-employed. I have an LLC, multiple, and I get dinged all the time because I didn't put in my estimates or something's late. I didn't file it on time. It's like, and then you get into, filing late because you want an extension. And then IRS is looking at you like, why do you need the extension? Like, what's going on? You get into a lot of different things. One of the things I was going to ask you about is ghost employees. And we had that during the mortgage boom of 2008, 2009, where they came out with these no income, no asset loan docs. And you get it approved, and just basically you just need a heartbeat and a breath coming out of your nose, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have a mirror test and be like, hey, Charles, like you can breathe, right? I got a house for you. And one of the things that I saw in the industry, not where I was working, but one of the things I saw in the industry was that people would just put employees on their payroll, and then they would be like, oh yeah, they've been working for me for 2 years, and this person, Charles, is ready to go and buy a house. And I think a lot of that obviously, led to the collapse of 2008 and 2009. But
Yes.
Do you see a lot of that in terms of like ghost employees or just people that, they were fired or they quit and they're still getting paid?
Yes. It's more common than you would think. The larger the organization and the more diverse it is. And now with, of course, companies being spread all over the country easily. We had a case not too long ago, hotel operator, and he insisted on seeing the checks himself. And then he said, no, that's all right. Well, after a few months, he said, I want to see him again. And the staff here in Dallas had added employees, and there were some that he had fired that were still being paid. They were taking the checks and cashing them.
Mm-hmm.
That's ghost employees is not unusual. You have to have control. That's one reason to have the checks separate. There's a whole series of internal control. Your sister's probably talked about it, of how you handle the payroll, the collection of the hours, who approves it, who makes changes, who cuts the checks, and who hands out the checks. Because if the guy that hands out the checks is not the guy that determines what the checks are going to be cut, well, he's sitting at the end of the day with checks in his hand going, hey, where's Fred?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's no Fred. There never has been. And so you get caught that way. It happens quite a bit. Another one is ghost punching. And this happened here at a recent case at an imaging center here in Dallas. The administrator said, I recommended a biometric clock. So you have to be there to punch it. Somebody can't punch you in or out.
Right.
If it's not your fingerprints, it doesn't take. They either have to have your hand or you have to be there. And she said, oh, I don't need that. And I said, let's put a camera on the clock. At the end of the week, she fired 3 people for buddy punching their friends.
Well, I know I used to, I don't want to incriminate myself, but
Statutes passed.
Yeah. So we would have a bar, and the bar would have the paper, time card thing.
Yep.
And we'd punch it, and it would be like, hey, Chris, I'm running late. Wherever, I'm hungover. I'll be there in a little bit. I'm already there. And I'll be like, well, the manager's not here. And then they're in, and then they came in on time, but really, like, they came in 2 hours late, hungover.
And that's the kind of thing that then leads to, well, if I can do that for my friends and I'm handing out the checks, well, why don't I just add somebody else to the payroll and now you have a ghost employee?
Yeah, there's a lot of fraud in payroll.
Yes.
I'm a certified fraud examiner. I don't really talk about it that much, but the amount of tests and stories that I've seen is just pretty wild. Where it gets, just like you said, like, I'm the owner. I send it out to you to get the payroll done, and then you have to send it to somebody else for the checks to get cut, and then you send it to somebody else for the final signature or whatever. And somewhere along that line, sometimes it's only just one person. And that one person is, well, like, I'll just cut a check to myself, or I'll cut a check to whatever.
One of my first ones was one my father found. He was an insurance consultant, and one of his clients was there in Moline, Illinois, across the river. And the controller had the payroll for the employees, and it was an old Jewish firm, and so they had a separate payroll for the executives. Well, he was on both of them.
Oh, wow.
But he controlled both, and he had nobody oversaw what he did. So he was on this payroll, and he was on this payroll.
I've seen some wild stuff. I've seen, well, not personally see, but I've read a lot of stuff where they'll even scratch out stuff or add a 1 or add a, it's a 7 and you make it a 9.
All the checks we issue, when we issue checks, we prefer direct deposits. We run them all through Positive Pay. So when the bank gets them, we've already told the bank who it's to and how much it is. And if that amount's not the same, they don't cash it. Somebody's got stuck with it because somebody cashed it, but our bank won't accept it and sends it back. We've had them where they'll deposit it electronically and then go deposit it manually or cash it manually as well.
Is there any errors that you really see with, let's say, any business, either be small or large or super large, payroll errors that you see common outside of like ghost employees?
There's 5 things that create most of the penalties that the IRS issues. Now, this isn't fraud. This is just penalties. The first is arithmetic mistakes. If you're not using a computer to generate these things, be careful. Use a calculator at least. That's a huge problem, just arithmetic errors. Then people don't know what to file and don't know when to file it and where to file it. So they don't know they have to have a quarterly report. They don't know they have to have an annual 940. They're unfamiliar with these things. So they don't know what they have to file and when they have to file it. So even if they know, well, then it's late because, well, they don't know. So those are the big things. And then how much they should be withholding, how much they should be paying on top of that. And then when those deposits have to be made. And if that deposit is 1 second late, there's a penalty.
Yeah, I know all about that stuff. I got hit with a pretty big penalty for not filing on time quarterly.
One time, and this statute's passed, this was when we were still making deposits manually at the bank for our clients. We were running late, and I called the bank, and the bank held the teller drawer open for an extra 15 minutes so I could get it into that day's business.
Wow.
And they were very nice. And I bought the teller line a champagne lunch.
Nice.
In thanking them for it. The bank let them have the lunch, but they couldn't have the champagne until after they were closed.
I'm sure you've seen some real wild stuff. I want to go back on the veteran. I know you're a veteran, and what kind of pushback did you see when you got out into the job force? Just people weren't hiring. I know times have changed a lot.
Employers of Texas was an insurance company here in Dallas. And I had moved down here after service, and they were hiring computer people. And I had been trained by IBM while in the Marine Corps as a computer programmer and a systems engineer. And I had helped convert the Marine Corps the military automated pay system for the Marine Corps from Autocoder in 1401 to 360 COBOL. Employers of Texas was moving from 1401 Autocoder to 360 COBOL. But they felt that my military experience wouldn't apply to the civilian world. We just moved, talking about fiscal. I mean, they were talking about money. We just had converted a payroll system, and they didn't think it applied to insurance policies. They went out of business about 5 years later. I think it's because they recruited the wrong people. So that's when I decided to go to college.
Talk to me about your book. I know you got really popular with that.
The Payroll Book, Guide for Small Businesses and Startups. I refer to it as, a third of a century of wisdom distilled down to 95,000 words. It talks about payroll, the ins, the outs, the pitfalls, the problems, how to do it, all the intricacies, who's an employee, who's not, are your kids employees, who's subject to taxes, penalties, interest, filing, what has to be filed, when it has to be filed, what's a PEO, employee handbooks, all kinds of things. It's a very useful guide. I don't recommend it to sit down and read it for the afternoon. It'll put you to sleep. But if a problem comes up, it's great to pull off the shelf, check the index, which Wiley & Sons did for me, thank God. They did a much better job than I ever could have done on the index. So it's a great reference book for small businesses and startups. If you're a Fortune 500 company, it doesn't mean anything to you.
Right.
Your people are already well trained, or should be. But for the startup or the small business, it's a wonderful book. And for your listeners, if they will go to thepayrollbook.com, enter the discount code podcast, we'll ship them free of charge a copy of the book.
That's awesome.
No shipping, no handling, no nothing. And if they get lost in it and they still have a problem, my phone number's in the book.
Nice. I wanted to touch on one thing because we have a lot of entrepreneurs, small business owners, people like myself that are running companies. And, this goes right in line with accounting for me. I am horrible at accounting, and that's why I got my sister. It's just something that I understand it. I went to school, I got my bachelor's, so I had to go through it. I failed. I think I got like a C- or something. I got passed, right? But it was terrible. And one of the things that I think for a lot of small business owners and entrepreneurs is they're like me. They're running. They're running to build a business. They're running to make sales. They're running to put inventory on their shelves if they do that. Or if they're in sales like me, they're looking to their next client. They're just looking to make money. And they kind of figure out, hey, look, like, I need to have some help. And if you're not a W-9 and you're W-2, then you end up having a kind of a myriad of problems with HR, and then you got payroll, and you got a lot of stuff. And you can get kind of really swamped into being an admin person instead of doing what you're really supposed to do, which is, go promote your company, go sell, expand the business scale. What is it that you kind of see for these small business owners, these entrepreneurs, that you can help out, or what they're really missing by not having a payroll company?
Well, as a CPA, I did a lot of consulting for small businesses, and I did payroll. I did the books for many years as well before I transitioned exclusive to payroll. So I'm very familiar with that. So get yourself a CPA. You need 4 people to help you in a business. You need a lawyer, you need a banker, you need an accountant, okay? And you need an insurance agent. Those 4 people you need in your business to help you, but they are consultants. The lawyers particularly and the accountants will tend to tell you how to run your business. Listen to their advice, but run your own business. But those are the 4 people you need. And within that accountant, payroll is a subset of that. If your accountant doesn't do payroll, use a payroll company. It's not worth doing yourself. For the few dollars that we charge, the time we save our clients, the penalties we save our clients, we're free. Our services to our clients literally are free.
Charles, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, maybe want to check out the book or ask you a question, or if they're just like me and just absolutely hard-headed about payroll or the insurance, I'm not insurance, but the IRS and dealing with them, where would they find you?
They can find us on the web at www.getpayroll.com. My email is cjr@getpayroll. And if they've got a quick question, 972-353-0000.
Charles, I appreciate you being on the show.
Chris, my pleasure. Thank you.
Awesome.